The record. Okay, so that should be the recording come up. I think it comes up with a little kind of message to say, are you all happy with it? I'm not sure there's an option not to be,
It's
but
just an
yeah.
okay.
Is it? Okay, brilliant. Alrighty. I did a bit of thinking about this today. It's a tricky one, really, and Julia will probably back me up on this. I currently don't really ever go afloat on a boat that doesn't have radar. So whether I am teaching Powerboat Level 2, whether I am teaching Yachtmaster offshore, it doesn't really matter what I'm teaching. There's always a radar, and what I find is that as soon as you turn it on, people want to play with it. So I do fully appreciate that I'm very spoilt in that I have a whole raft of radars to play with. But what I've hoped to do tonight is maybe give you some ideas as to how you can teach it if you don't have a radar, and show you a little bit about what might be available for you, obviously depending on the depth of your pockets. I've got some free options and I've got some not so free options as well. Um, so bear with me two ticks. What I would like to do is launch a quick poll and see if you can just, hopefully it should come up on the screen. There should be some questions on the screen. There should be a how well do you know your radar? So this is a totally anonymous poll. Even I don't get to see who said what. So if you want to vote and say how well do you know your radar? If you've attended an RYA radar course, I thought that would be quite an interesting one because we can also talk about what reasonably you can expect if you haven't. And then whether or not you're a radar instructor, I thought it would be quite interesting to find out who may or may not be on there. So it's a bit like running a game show, I think, when I then want to look around and see if you've all, it's like put your pens down if you've answered the question on blankety blank, isn't it? Alrighty, so let me see if I can end that and pop it up. Share results. Let's see. Hopefully, can you guys see that now on the screen as the results come up? Yeah, magic. So out of the nine of us who have responded, obviously, because that's not me as well, we've got a first mattering of not great, okay, pretty good, and extremely well. I would say the okay seems to be the winner of that one. What's more interesting, I think, is that what half of us have not attended an RYA radar course. So I think my first thing to you all would be if you haven't attended one, then please go and attend one. I appreciate there is a whole raft of different ways of teaching, and there may still be some, dare I say, old and bold instructors who might not want to use simulators and so on and so forth. But the rules are very clear. You have to have a simulator, you have to be able to deliver it, and there is a good syllabus. If you can find a good one, you can find somebody who's passionate about it rather than teaching it because they're being paid to, then it should be a really good opportunity for you to learn quite a lot about it. The syllabus is fairly flexible, and it does give you a really good opportunity to explore all sorts of bits and pieces with them and how you can go about teaching it and so on. So that's probably the one thing that I would suggest that you go do. Quite interestingly, we've got the only one other person, I'm guessing that's Julie, is a radar instructor. So if it's not perhaps on your CPD plans, then it might be something that you might want to put on your CPD plans. Not because everybody should be an expert in everything, but if you can go and do a bit more understanding of how to teach it, being a radar instructor isn't just about standing at the front of a classroom and running the one day RYA radar course. I think that's one of the things that I would say about how you might want to go about it. What I'd like to ask, and it's kind of an open for all, is what would be the biggest worry for you teaching radar? What worries you all most about actually teaching it? Doofus, just
Someone
take yourselves
knowing,
off Zoom and pop yourself on there.
someone possibly knowing more than you do.
Okay?
Come on, ladies, there must be something you've thought of. What worries you?
What worries you about teaching it? What stops you teaching it? What makes you think I will avoid this and I will go and do something that I am much happier with? Because let's face it, we all go and do that quite often, don't we?
Well, Hans is up on the radar technology and the screen was so old time style and vintage. Didn't spend time on it because I didn't have time. and the boat, I was not used to the boat. So literally blink on how to use it and difficult how to teach on it. So I didn't have time to um, make me prepare to teach. That was scary.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Alyssa. Any other thoughts across the board?
I'm
Yeah,
not being confident with what I'm talking about.
Okay, Talita, what makes you say that? Because I'm sure that you know lots of really cool stuff. What makes you think that you're not confident about what you're talking
Uh,
about?
I don't use it usually
Okay,
on the boats. I never use it, so I'm not used to it. I don't have the confidence, and if I'm not confident, then it's hard to teach, I think. It's
okay,
something knowing is not the same as teaching.
okay, cool. Thank you, Talita. I think Sophie, I think you popped up on the screen
yeah,
as
I
well.
think for me it's always been theory. I've only ever learned radar in theory and tried and kind of fumbled my way through it for exams and that. But I've never even got near a real radar kit. So the boats where I am based just don't have them. They don't have the money and they just don't have even old ones, let alone new ones. So I've never got anywhere near one.
Okay. So, if I can just try and grab one of the things that I did earlier on today was I thought I'll go and have a look at the syllabuses because everybody likes looking at the syllabuses as to where we are supposed to be teaching. So if I can, hopefully, I get rid of you. What I was going to say, the question would be, what courses do you think we should be teaching radar on?
All of them.
All of them, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Anything that's
from
I
got
day
think it needs to be
skipper up.
radar.
introduced day skipper level. Comp crew needs to be aware of it. It's pieces of kit that is on the boat, and if it's on the boat, people should be aware of it. They don't have to be highly skilled, but they
Yeah.
need to know that is a tool, and it's not something that they get to Yachtmaster and go, "Oh, I need to go and backfill all that bit of information."
Okay. And it's quite interesting. I think it depends on how you look at the screen. So bear with me. If I just, oh, Craig, if I go share screen, if I pop that up, hopefully, I'm not sure I can see you all now, but there we go. Yeah, participants can now see my application is what it says. That's a whole new thing for me. Let me find you over there. Right. So, when I went through it, I picked up the two syllabuses. The day skipper syllabus is on the left there, coastal skipper syllabus at the top, and then the yachtmaster exam syllabus. What's interesting is that on the day skipper syllabus, there isn't actually anything specifically saying radar. Neither does it specifically say don't teach it. I suppose that would be the point that I'm trying to make. So it doesn't say we only teach this on Coastal Skipper or we only teach it higher. The first time it's really mentioned is on the Coastal Skipper practical. And then as far as the Yachtmaster syllabus is concerned for the exams, then there's no reason that it wouldn't be in there. I guess what I would challenge you to say is even when we're talking about day skipper, even if you don't have a radar on board, can you really teach somebody, because it's can use electronic navigation equipment for position finding? Can you honestly, hand on heart, teach somebody how to do that without mentioning radar? Same for the rules of the road. It says can demonstrate a practical understanding of the IRPCS. There's a lot of IRPCS has got radar in there. I did a search today and there are 13 references specifically to radar in IRPCS. And only one of them, I think, is actually in Rule 19. The rest are all in all the different rules, so the main common sense rules. And I think what's really interesting is that if you look at where we should be teaching it, what skills you already have, if you don't use it and you're not used to using it, then how are you going to upskill yourself? Because I think a couple of you just sort of mentioned, oh, I've done the theory, or I've perhaps done it once upon a time, or I know, remember, crikey, in lockdown, I think I was doing a radar session with Alyssa sitting on her boat in the nice Greek sunshine, or I can't quite remember where you were at the time, but we can go through all bits and pieces like that. But if you can't use it and you can't explain to somebody how they should be using it and why they should how they should be using it and why they should use it, they're going to really struggle with what's the point. It's an interesting one that we have right now. So for the powerboat trainers, we don't have to have radar on board the powerboats. We don't have to have radar on board the motorboats. I don't think I've seen very many that don't, but certainly it is going to become something that is becoming far more affordable. It's becoming far smaller. When you look at the different types of radar, so the broadband radar that has come in now, which draws a huge amount less power than any of the bigger systems used to. There is no excuse of, oh, well, I don't want to use my battery, I can't charge my batteries, da 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 da. So those traditional type of excuses, for want of a better word, are really going out of the window with what we can expect. And I think one of the things to think about, we deal a lot with the Boatmaster licenses up here, and the Boatmaster licenses, for those of you who don't know, are done for a particular boat in a particular area. Certainly the lower end of the Boatmaster licenses are, whereas we're actually training people who are going to go and use these tickets like D-Skipper, like a Yachtmaster Coastal, like a Yachtmaster Offshore, to work pretty much anywhere in the world on any kind of boat. So it's kind of our obligation to train them for what they might see, just because it's not on your boats, and it's not within your gift to show them right now within a practical application, doesn't mean that they shouldn't have that idea of what they could do in the future. And I think that's probably the biggest plea from me, is that we get a lot of people who go away and go, I'm going to go on to a particular boat and it's going to have all this Gucci kit. How am I going to possibly use it? So I hope that doesn't sort of surprise you, and it's not meant to sound preachy in any way. But what I am just trying to get you to think about is, if you are teaching on the Yachtmaster syllabus, and you are teaching all the general rules, the steering and the sailing rules, including Rule 19, with sound and light signals, you're going to have to teach radar. Because you can't not. You can't tick it off your list and say you've done it if you haven't talked about use of radar or its limitations or when it should be used. And same when you're looking at things like navigation. You can't have taught that whole as to a student who is then a rounded student if they can't go away and say, well, actually, if I did have one, then this is what I could use it for. Any thoughts across the board? I noticed I've got you on a different screen. Does that surprise anybody? Any thoughts on that?
I know people are very scared about even playing with the radar to start with. If there's one on the boat, they'll look at it, and the initial impression of a radar screen is it's a whole lot of blobs and I can't make any sense of it. And it takes, once you kind of understand roughly what's going on and you start using and playing with overlay and some of the settings, it takes maybe half an hour to an hour and a half just playing with it, and it suddenly starts to make sense. And then you can start using it, and the more you use it, the better you get. So it's something you just need to play with whenever you get a chance.
Go for it, Helen.
So I know on my CPD sessions, I've given everybody kind of a list of the minimum things you should be able to do on a radar, because a lot of the problems is all the sets are all different. And you have to spend your time looking through the menus and sorting stuff out. But if you have a minimum list of, these are the things I need to be able to find on that menu, and spend a little bit of time, like Julie says, sorting that out, do your minimum, and then you just get familiar with that bit, and then you start building up the use of that radar. So yeah, it's just a really simple list. I'm happy to share with people. I probably have shared with most people on here anyway. But it's just a starting point, so you're not overwhelmed by the amount of information that the radar can give you, because it is a lot, especially on the newer systems.
Cool. And I mean, Julie's absolutely right. And certainly, even when I take my D-Skipper students out, I sit them and they have a look at the radar. They incorporate it on in their passage planning or whatever. And I say to them, have a play, because you can't really break it. I mean, you can't actually do anything bad with it. You can push buttons and change things and make things get bigger and smaller and put EBLs on things. You can target things. I mean, if you target things using the marker, the mini automatic radar plotting aid, if you target things, there isn't something on board that ship that you've targeted that suddenly it's like some kind of, Second World War movie where they suddenly go, oh my God, they've targeted us. Nobody knows. So actually having a play with it, I absolutely echo what Julie's saying. Actually going and having a play with it. I get on board people's boats and look at it and go, I'm pretty good on Garmin. I'm not so bad on Simrad. I'm pretty good on Raymarine, but Furuno just baffles me. It really does. And I'll get a look at Furuno radars and go, what's this nonsense? But I know that when I look at it, eventually I've got to turn it on. I've got to set it up. I've got to get a picture looking like something I want it to be. And then it's either push a button, tap on the screen, press and hold. There's only so many things that you can do with it. And if all else fails, you can turn it off and turn it back on again, and it starts all over again. So I think that's probably the one thing is that if you get the opportunity to play and you get lost in it, you're not really sure, then just like press reset or just put it out of transmit into standby and then go back into thing. You can't really break it. And it doesn't do bad things to people. I suppose that's the one thing I think. I've put a little link into the chat. Hopefully you guys have seen that. This is a free thing. Now, the radar simulators that I could potentially talk about, and I'll show you a couple. Let me see if I can just share the right screen and then I can show you. Let's try that.
Be back in a second.
Let me see if I've got you all there. Right. Can you see the screen that I've got with the little radar screen on? Magic. So this is a freebie, okay? This is called the Virtual Sailing School. I put the link into the thing. There's a few things on there that are quite interesting. They've got a VHF one. It doesn't do masses, but it does do some basics. So if you want to turn it on, I think I've got it turned on already. You can see there's a few things at the bottom. Or that with me turning it off, I think. There we go. So I've turned it on. It's pretended to warm up because most of the radars will need some time to warm up. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And it actually comes up with an idea of a screen that if you're a fairly good radar operator, you could look at and go, well, there's some blibs and blobs on there.
That's the Solent.
Don't give it away, Julie. Honestly, my goodness, it's always the Solent. It drives me bananas. So I've got some land going on the left-hand side. I've got some land going at the bottom. What I don't know at the moment is which way up my radar screen is. I don't know if it's in head up or if it's in north up. I haven't got a clue. And what I can do is I can have a little bit of a play. I don't know if can you see my mouse moving on the screen?
Yeah.
Magic. So I can have a little bit of a play. If you put your mouse over it, it will tell you what you can do. So I can have a play with where I can put a cursor. I can have a bit of a play with doing some rain. I can put an EBL and a VRM on. And I'm sure, Helen, this is probably on your list, but if you are not teaching people how to put, or that they could use a radar range, an EBL, electronic bearing line, or a variable range marker, that's by far the easiest thing to teach them. So whether I'm looking at pilotage, and I'll pop something up about pilotage a bit later, if I'm looking at pilotage skills of getting in and out of somewhere using my radar range, here you can see I've now got a new dotted line. I'm not sure I can make this, make it a little bit bigger. That might be better for you. I've got a little dotted line that's come on now, which is a new radar ring, if you like. So I've got me at the center of the screen. You can see there's a little bit going on with the interference just from the water around me. I've got my ring that's going around here, and I've also got my electronic bearing line. And up on the top left-hand side here, you can see that my EBL is set, so my electronic bearing line is set to 0. So that's going right up the screen. I'm in presumably Norfolk for this one. And my variable range marker is set out to 3 nautical miles. And the way I teach this, and if some of you have been on my sessions before, I sometimes kind of use some quite baby language with students, but it seems to work. The way I teach it is to say, think of putting a bubble or a hula hoop around your boat. Effectively, what you're doing is you're putting a great big bubble or a hula hoop around your boat at a particular distance. And then what I can say to you is, because now what we can see is whatever this blob is over on the left-hand side here, that looks like land to me. Either that or it's a giant boat, okay? So it's got to be land. That land is 3 nautical miles away. And I haven't had to do very much. I haven't had to do any measuring. I haven't had to do any moving cursors around. What I have said is, here is my variable range marker that's going around my boat. Anything inside that bubble, because I am at the center of the picture, Anything inside that bubble is within, in this case, 3 nautical miles. Okay.
Each ring is a nautical mile.
On this one, yes.
In this
Yeah.
case.
So, sorry, I should have said that. Yeah. So from the center to the outside of the bevel there is 6 nauticals. I'm trying not to make it a total radar course, I have to say. So apologies, chip in if you want me to explain a bit more. So you're at the center of the picture, the bevel around the outside, and the center to the outside is 6 nautical miles. Okay. That doesn't mean the radar is only looking 6 nautical miles. It just means that I am displaying 6 nautical miles. My radar is still looking much further because it's a really clever box, okay? And it's doing all of its things, but I'm only asking the PPI, the plan position interface, to display 6 nautical miles. But what can you tell me about the picture? Well, there's a blob. I don't know what the blob is. Haven't got a clue. I haven't got an AIS feed on there, so all I know is there's a blob, and the blob is sitting there. Well, that's 1 mile, that's 2 miles, so it's about just over 1.5 miles away. So I've got 1.5 miles to worry about dying horrible death. Okay, depends what you're doing, what speed you're doing, I suppose. Like if I take my brain into sort of the 5 knot territory, that's a lot longer. You could go below and make a cup of tea and worry about that one. That's not going to work so well if I, try it on a motorboat hurtling along at 25 knots. But I can easily see on the picture here that the nearest point of land is 3 nautical miles away. I think you'll see now I can make this bigger and smaller. So actually I can bring it in now because the blob I was after, there we go, I'll pop it right on top of the blob. The blob that I was looking for didn't sit on one of the rings, so I didn't know how far away it was. I could guess. But actually now I can tell you that that blob is 1.77 nautical miles away. Okay. And I can easily do that if I'm not sure I can move the EBL around on this one. Make it go away. Let's see. Oh yeah, I can. There we go. Ooh. Oh, on the simulator, I can only let it go. So the EBL, you should be able to see now, is sort of hurtling around the screen. I don't think I can stop it. And what it's saying now is that I'm like firing a line from me to the edge of the screen. It would normally stop. I'm hoping it might stop when it gets to the top. Can't make it. Oh, now I can't make it stop at all. I'll have to watch it go around. Normally it would stop and I would be able to stick it onto the thing and I'd be able to give you a range and a bearing to a blob on the screen. The downside with this is I don't know what the blob is. All I can tell you is, and I always say deal in facts. Imagine that you were in court in a being questioned in court. What's the fact that you can tell me? There is a blob. I don't know what it is. And it is it's about 20 degrees from 0 if this is in north up, and it's sitting out at try and stop it, can't make it stop now. We go to rain and come back again. And I can set it to that particular blob at a range and a bearing. So now I can say that there is a thing. It's useful to do it, but your EBL is probably one of your best tools for collision avoidance. Because if I can make it stop. Can't make it stop. No, I can set it going again. I can't make it stop. It just keeps going around now. If I can set it on a thing, whatever that thing is, if there was a thing came down that particular EBL, it's coming to me because I'm at the end of it. So if we take the boats out and people say, well, there's a blob, and I say, well, is there a risk of collision? And they say to me, well, I don't know. I said, well, put the EBL on it then. Because if there is a risk of collision and we are moving and it is moving and yet it keeps coming down that electronic bearing line, then it's only coming at me. We will end up in a collision. That's closest point of approach is 0. So that's by far the easiest way. It doesn't take huge amounts of radar knowledge, and it's something that we would teach very much at the day skipper level of what is around you and what is coming to kill you. And the thing coming to kill you could be a boat, it could be a moored buoy, you could be hurtling towards it. There's all sorts of things that it could be, okay? On here, the display isn't as good as I would like. Obviously, I've now worked out that I can't make that stop. You can have a little bit of a play with the tune. So we can go in. Most radars now, certainly the newer ones, will do auto tune for you. So if you can remember having to tune an old telly in or an old radio in, where you had to actually move the knob to try and see it, and get the picture right, that's effectively what you're doing. on the tuning. Okay, we can have a bit of a play with it here, and the idea is that depending on how good, so that's quite poor tuning because you can see that the picture on the left there has gone quite shallow. If I bring it, that's probably about the best tuning I can get. It doesn't necessarily mean it's at 100%. And I'm just aligning the outgoing and the incoming signals in simple terms. Okay, as the magnetron warms up and it gets happier, you can change the tuning, which is why the automatic tuning is quite a good one. On here, you can also have a play with the rain clutter and the sea clutter. It gives you some idea. So if you look on the picture, I've got a blob, I've got a rain cloud, and I've got my land, and I can change the sea clutter. Pardon me, the rain clutter on this one. As soon as, and limitations are one of the biggest things I would say to you to have a think about. Everybody will tell you that radar is this all-seeing eye. It's a magic box. It can see through the dark. It can see through fog. I mean, it can't see around corners, so it's not that magic. Okay? It can't see through things, so it can't see through that big cruise ship to tell me that there's a fast-moving vessel on the far side of it. There's loads of limitations of what it can't do. But as soon as I start to change any of the settings on the screen, what I have to understand is that I am telling the box not to show me things. So the box, the radar or the magnetron is sending out all the pulses, and they're bringing all the pulses back. It's displaying it to the best of its ability, depends on how good your system is. So it could be an HD system, you could get an HD picture, it could be in color, it could be all sorts of things. But this is a fairly simple picture that's showing me I've got land down the left-hand side, I've got a blob, which just given the shape of it according to the land and the rain is probably looking like a fairly biggish boat, and I've got a rain cloud. If I start to play with the rain clutter then, effectively it's like me taking an eraser and starting on the outside of the picture and rubbing things out on the way into the center. So usually I'm detecting my rain quite far out. If I add the rain in here, if I put the rain up, as I put it in, what you'll see is the pictures are changing. So the rain cloud has pretty much disappeared as I have turned the rain clutter up. Because what I'm actually doing is I'm turning off, I'm telling the radar, don't show me all these things around the edge. But if I turn things off, what's the big risk with that?
You're going to miss something.
Absolutely. So if there was, I don't know, HMS Queen Elizabeth or something equally that big sitting underneath the very big rain cloud, I've just wiped it out off the screen. Because it's not clever enough for me to say, could you just turn off the things that I don't want to see? It's not that bright. All it does is say, okay, I will turn things off from the outside in. If we keep going, what you'll eventually see, this picture is starting to go now, and the return that we're getting on there. And this is a really simple demonstration, okay? If we pop the sea clutter on, then imagine your sea clutter is the opposite. Your sea clutter is taking the returns around you and it's rubbing it out from the center outwards. So what I'm saying to my clever box is, all right, I know it's a bit lumpy, and I know, remember, if it conducts electricity, it will give me some good returns on my radar. So if it's going to conduct electricity like water, it will give me some good returns on the radar, but that's no good because I don't want around me to be totally wiped out by the sea clutter. So if I start to turn the sea clutter up on here, you'll see that the picture in the middle is becoming much less vibrant because I'm rubbing out from the inside. The further up I turn this, the more of the return I'm asking it not to show me. So it's still doing the same things. I'm just saying to the screen, I get you, but I don't want to see that. And the downside, like Tanya just said, from the rain side, if something's hiding under the rain cloud, then you're not going to see it. Equally, if I start to turn things off around me, that's potential collisions, that's potential buoys, that's things that I might be close to on my pilotage, for example, that I might not actually see. Okay. What I would say is anytime you go and use a radar or you take over a watch from somebody who has used the radar, the very first thing I tend to do is either get a really good briefing from them that says this is what I have done, or I reset everything. Because I have got absolutely no idea what they have tinkered with. and there are loads of different settings. So I haven't got a clue. So I reset everything and I go back to the beginning and say, right, here is the picture I want. Now I will turn on the things that I want or off the things that I want. Okay. I used to be a trainer assessor on the lifeboats, and I would regularly get on the back of the ribs and look at the screen and go, holy macaroni, is there anything you have not got turned on? And they'd be like, no, but look how amazing. I said, but you can't see the picture. It's like someone's drawn all over it. You can't see the picture. So learning to set it up is quite important, but playing with the controls, give yourself a reason to play with the controls. I would play with sea clutter if it was a really bumpy day, and the sea clutter was making it so that I couldn't use the picture as well as I wanted. I wouldn't just play with sea clutter because it's there. Same with the rain clutter. I just wouldn't do that, okay? I think that's probably all that this one will do. I think it will let you, if we go back. Oh, it will let me change the gain. The gain then is amplifying some of the weaker returns that come back. And if I amplify those, the more I turn it up, you'll see the more the picture starts to show lots of speckle. Okay. What it's doing is it's taking absolutely every return that it comes back in with, and it's putting it on the screen. Okay. But it's a free piece of kit. And actually, you can have a little bit of a play with it, coupled with some of the things I'll show you that you could perhaps have a read of. And it might just be something that you could use. I haven't tried it on an iPad. I have got one on an iPad that I might try and show you a little bit later. But it might just be something that might help you with the student understanding what they're looking at, or help you understand what they're looking at. Okay. Any thoughts on that? Is that anything that anyone's seen before?
Yes.
Nods? Yes? No?
Yes, I've seen it before.
You have? Okay, cool. Let me come off.
I've not seen that one, but it's a lovely, very simple little introduction.
And I think you can go really bonkers on radar, don't get me wrong. I mean, we've just had a brand new one fitted onto our cruiser that's a halo radar. I mean, I'm expecting Lara Croft to sort of pop out from in the box. You know, I don't know quite what a halo radar does yet, but it's magic. And I think the simpler you can be, certainly to get people understanding it. Otherwise, what you'll find, and it's the most lovely word that someone once taught me, techno-romanticism. Basically, using kit for using kit's sake. So having no good reason to use it, but using it anyway, okay? And I will see people get on the boat, they'll be tinkering away with the radar, and I say, what are you doing? They're like, oh, I'm not really sure. Like, so why are you doing it then? Because it's there, and it must be useful. Like, but nobody's looking where they're going. Anyone want to look where they're going? So I think it's really worth making sure that everybody totally understands what they're getting out of it, okay? One of the other simulators that we tend to use is the Lightmaster simulator. Just a quick kind of show of hands, is that something that people have seen or used or have access to? Yeah, Julie, you do. Helen, all right, you got your hands up. Yeah, cool. Okay. If you have, let me just see if I can pop it up. You can buy it yourself. Off the top of my head, it's about 70 quid, I think. Something like that. It's old technology, but it's fairly basic. It's what we used to teach our radar course with. Bear with me, let me just put the screen up.
I've got a bit of info on that.
Ooh.
The guy who did the Lightmaster
Yeah.
is developing a new one
Mhm.
for the radar course and potentially a chart plotter course using the RYA charts.
Okay.
So in the pipeline, but when is the big question.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one that should have just, you should be able to see it. I've got a green box around it now, so I'm hoping you can see it. This is a fairly simple piece of kit. There are examples or there are exercises that are already loaded on here. I can transmit it. Let me just load an exercise. Oh, let's put this one up. Okay. So we run the exercises on there. I will pause it. It brings the exercise up. We can play with all of the buttons on here, imagine that they're knobs that you can turn. So I can turn the brilliance all the way up. I can turn the gain all the way up so I can show what the gain does. You can see it's obliterating the picture. I want to bring it back down to a better level. I'll bring it down to about there-ish. I can play with the tuning so I can try and make that picture a little bit better. I'm actually in a congested harbour here. I don't think it's the Solent. I'm not sure, but we'll see. And my
Don't
C clutter and my
recognise
rain clutter I can also have a play with. Don't worry about fast time constant. That's something that's kind of more old school than it is on new ones. I can do things like turn my rings on and off, so I can actually have a look at what the limitations are on the screen. Why would I want to turn the rings off? Something might be hiding underneath it. Okay, so I might want to turn the rings on and off. I can hide my ship's heading marker here, but I can only do that temporarily. You can see that one. My heading at the moment, 135 degrees. So the picture here you're looking at is in head up. So head up I'm going to use for anti-collision. It's going to be the most unstable picture that I have because effectively as the boat moves, as it kind of yaws around, the radar is having to put the picture back together again as the boat kind of heels over from side to side, particularly on a bumpy day. What I can do is I can change my heading mode here. I can put it into north up. So now you can see that the whole picture has changed orientation. My ship's heading marker is now coming down the screen here at 135. And I'm trying to, I think the idea of this one is to escape from the congested harbour and not get run over by the ferry that tries to chase you out. But I can change the picture, okay? There's lots of things I can do on here that are really quite simple. And if you were looking at using it to teach, then I would just have a look at getting used to being able to have a bit of a play with it. I can, if I go back into head up for you, I can put it into a guard zone. So you can see I've started to put a guard zone around me. Anything coming into that guard zone now, if I had the sound on, it would be beeping away because it would be unhappy that things were in the guard zone. I can use it to do some basic marker where I move the cursor around. So if you'll see, if I move the cursor up the screen here and go and target this blob here, and I click acquire target, you can see that it's put a square box around it now and it's given me some more information down in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. It says target 13. We're on pause, I think. I'm on pause, so it's not moving at the time. It tells me that the thing at the moment is on. If I click resume, let's see what it does. And then press pause. Okay. It's found that thing, it's done the clever maths, and what it said is whatever that thing is 165 degrees true. So that's true here. If you look around my bevel, because I'm at 135, it's sat at a range of 0.6. Most importantly, it's got a CPA of 0.6 nautical miles, but the time to that closest point of approach has passed. And whatever it's doing it on 250 degrees, and it's doing a speed of 12 knots. So it's hurtling out of this congested harbour. Okay. Moving the cursor and bits and pieces around is a little bit clunky for this particular program. And what we find when we use it is that it's not what people would see on a screen. It's not touch screen. It's not Raymarine Quantum. It's not Simrad's Halo. It's not any of those things. But what we remind people is that we're teaching them the basics. So we're literally just trying to show them what it is capable of without them getting too lost in the where's the menu, how does the menu work, what do I do with this, why is it not doing, and so on. And it just has some basic bits and pieces down here, okay? If I just cancel the targets there, come out of my rings, I'll put a VRM and an EBL that probably doesn't go bananas. There we go. I've clicked VRM, EBL. These ones are attached. So actually, if I move it across now, what you can see is I've got my bubble around my boat. There's my variable range marker. I've chosen to turn the rings off because actually with the rings on, it's quite messy. It's quite difficult to see. So if I wanted to say go target that particular boat, assuming it's a boat, I mean, it was doing 12 knots. So I've now put the range ring out to it, and down in the bottom left-hand corner, you should be able to see it's at 0.62, which is what the marker was telling me. And it's on 23.6 degrees relative. So for those of you who are also shore-based instructors who are constantly telling your students, label everything of degrees true, degrees compass, degrees magnetic, okay? Now we can add degrees relative into the equation as well. So this is 23 degrees relative to my heading. Okay. You'll see if I pop this one into Northup, the picture stays the same. So my bubble, my variable range marker is still around the boat at the same distance. And the EBL is still where I left it. Okay, the EBL now you can see down here on 160 degrees. That would be what I would expect if I got the hand-bearing compass out. That would be what I would expect to see that thing on. Okay, now I'm in Northup. If I'm in Northup, it's a much more stable picture because basically the radar is working less hard to show me the picture. It's basically saying this is what you can see, and if you overlay that with a chart plotter or split screen it with a chart plotter next to it, then what you would see is a snap picture. You would see the chart plotter in Northup, assuming you all run around like I do in Northup, and you would see the radar in Northup. The downside of keeping your radar in Northup is if you want to figure out whether this thing is dangerous, what students then tend to do is stand up from the chair and tip the head around and try and look at the picture like that. Which I say, well, that's lovely, but all you need to do is just do that. And now what you see, basically what's in front of you is what is really in front of you. It's an out of the window picture. This is really, if my boat is pointing in this direction, that thing is over there on the right. Okay. So I can use the various heading modes. It only has head up and north up on here. It doesn't have course up, which most of the newer sets would have. But again, it's a fairly old program. I think I've certainly been using this one for about 15 years, I think, something like that. It's that old, crikey. I can change the range at the top. So before I do that, let me hide things, put my range rings back on, and then you can see it. I can change the range at the top here, so I can make the range come down even smaller. You can see at the top right-hand corner with the screen here, it's telling me my range is now 0.5. Remember, that's the distance from me to the edge of the picture. The rings are now at 1/4 of a nautical mile. So whatever this breakwater is here, it's about 1/4 of a mile long because it goes all the way to that bubble. Okay. Now, if I turn my VRM, it resets my VRM. I thought it might show a slightly different one. Okay. Sometimes you can set your VRM and then it ends up off the page and you have to go and get it because it leaves it at like 3 miles or something. Okay. It's a relatively simple program. You can make your own exercises for it. There are various different exercises that you can do. If I just click on open one, let's have a look. This might make you Solentiers a little bit happier. If that's even a word. I don't know what somebody who lives in the Solent is. Okay. Again, I'll put the screen up. So I want to come back down on my range. I'll come down to about 4 nautical miles and let's see if I can figure out where I am. I've got an interesting picture. So I've got a whole coastline going on down here. Let's make it a bit bigger. Let's see what we get. And I guess one of the key things is whatever you're looking at, my gain's good, my tuning's all right. C's all down. Whatever it is that you're looking at, there's no point having your screen set to like this one at the moment. That bit of land there is what, about 1/2 nautical mile away? Most of my screen is showing land. Well, what a waste. What a waste. I'm never going over there. I'm not bothered about all the things that are over there. So there's no point having it set at that range. But there is every point having it set at that range if I go into head up. And I realized that what I'm actually trying to do is roll along this coast and I'm trying to get in or around something. Okay.
Looks like Portsmouth.
Say again?
Looks like Portsmouth.
Can't remember on this one. It's a while since I had a bit of a play with them. Let me see what I can see if we can run that one. Well, it puts it up. Gains all good, tuning's good. There we go. Right, there we go. That's a better picture. So this is the Needles down here, if I remember rightly. This is coming down the Isle of Wight. This is the Needles down here. There'll be a raycon that pops up there shortly. We're coming in and up the Solent. So one of the key things you can see on my screen at the moment is most of it is land. But what's it giving me? What's this 8-mile range giving me?
Bigger perspective on what's going on.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sophie. So a much bigger perspective. it's actually giving me, I say an over the horizon view, but it's actually showing me that there's a whole bunch of things that are coming down here to get me. I can't worry about them all at once, but what I can do is say, well, that doesn't look good. So I'll deal with coming around this corner, and then I'll deal with the things that are coming down there to get me. So if I bring the range a little bit further down, then you'll start to get more of an idea. If I just knock this gain down, then you don't get all the snow on the picture today. So now I can say within my 2 mile bubble, so from the center to the outside is 2 miles, rings are at 0.5, I'm in head up. The nearest point of land is here and here. I don't need to put a variable range marker on it. I can see it's less than half a nautical mile. But if my plan was to stay a half a nautical mile away from something on this picture, I can look at it and go, well, I've not succeeded, have I? Because the land is within the bubble. And it's a really simple thing. Even if you have a radar on board, to ask the day skippers, is to say to them, we want to roll up this coast. I want to be 1/4 nautical mile away. Don't let the land come into the bubble. If the land comes into the bubble, I need to do something about it because I am too close to the land. Okay. The things are moving because I think this is set to go, isn't it? We're doing 10 knots, hurtling our way up the Solent here. And you can start to see that the things will move. Again, I can try and target something. So if I acquire the target, this time you'll see it's put a box around it whilst it has a think. Because what it's got to do is do more than one set of microwaves towards it. Okay, it's now worked out that it's doing 77 degrees, range 0.6, its course is 0 and its speed 0. So if it has no course and no speed, what are you thinking it might be?
At
Oi.
anchor.
Oh, sorry, Tanya.
At anchor.
It could be. It could be a vessel at anchor. Could be. I think, Julie, you said it could be a buoy.
Yeah,
Probably.
more likely to
And
be a
if
buoy.
if my pilotage plan or my passage plan was to expect a buoy in that location, ta-da, I might just have found it. I might just have found it though, because I don't quite know. Because what can you hand on heart say? It's a thing, it's doing no speed and no heading. That's all I can say. Okay. So that's the kind of functionality that you can get on there. I could happily do this all day. However, I am conscious of time for everybody if I come off the share for that. The program is around, I think it's around about 70, £80. Some of your training centres may well have it already. And you can create your own exercises on there. It only works on a PC. It doesn't work on an iPad. And I appreciate, Julie, the information of that there may be something new in the pipeline. I've heard that many times, so I'll not
I
be
have as well,
I'll not
but
be holding my
uh,
breath for that
I'm
one.
not holding my breath,
No,
but
I'm not holding my
I've
breath.
seen Doug put some images up of a little while ago of what it's going to look like, so I'm ever hopeful.
But if you're looking for something to teach from, other than the really simple one that I showed you, that's probably the only other one that I really know about. I'm not saying there aren't, but we do some digging because I quite happily show you if there's some other bits and pieces, but that really is the only other one that I know about. You can run some funny things. There are some inbuilt exercises, so you don't need to go in and create your own. There are some inbuilt exercises. And if I remember rightly, it does have the exercises that go with the radar book for the radar course. The plotting exercises are on there as well. So you can use it for that one if you like. There.
I have seen people also using still images of
Mhm.
radar screens with different setups on them, a bit like the RYA theory courses,
Yeah.
and then just explaining what the images are and what it's telling you. And that can work. If you have a bunch of them on the different settings, it works really well.
Yeah, I've got a few that I think I tried to pop up on this thing. If I just go to, bear with me 2 ticks, if I put this up and then try and find you guys again to share. This is all very reminiscent of COVID now.
I think you're doing brilliantly.
That's all right. Hang on, bear with me 2 ticks. I just want to try and get the right one. Let me do that and get rid of you. Get rid of you. That's not the screen I wanted, is it? That was the screen I wanted. Right. So hopefully now you are looking at my title slide. Okay. So this is a picture of our rib. Okay. What I would say is, what can you see? What does
A
it
lot
tell
more.
you? Not you, Julie. You know the answers to this. What can you see? What could you hand on heart tell me from that screen? If I put you in front of it and said, your job is to tell me what that picture is, what would it be? Are we going to die? Is a question I start with. And if we are going to die, how long have we got before we die?
Well, we're in the water.
Hey, yep,
We're
good
quite
job.
close to land.
How
Okay.
fast? What's our bearing?
So I've got
104
heading,
degrees.
yeah,
And
the
I can't
heading's
read
going
what
on
that
there.
mile
Sorry,
is.
love.
Did I say 1.5
I
meters?
think it's 11
11.
11,
11. I
that's,
can't really read that very well.
yeah, sorry, that's the depth at 11.5.
Right.
I've
Oh,
got
so
a
we're all
range
right then, really.
a range at one, yeah, we're good for a while. A range at 1 nautical mile, and I've got rings at half a nautical mile. So from here to the exit to the bevel is 1 nautical mile, and to the next range ring there is half a nautical mile. Okay, but there's a lot going on the picture. So I totally take what Julie was saying is have some pictures. But if I say to you, you should be able to see on that picture almost anything you need to teach. You've got a variable range marker that's about to fall off the edge of the screen. You've got an electronic bearing line coming down here. You've got a whole marina full of boats in here. Now, of course, it helps if you took the picture. I mean, I get that. It's like a total spoiler. I do get that. If you took the picture, it helps. Okay. I've got a bridge. I've got a Raycon coming off the bridge. I've got vectors coming out from an AIS overlay and a whole chunk of land. Okay. So if you're going to get some pictures, then try and get the pictures to demonstrate a particular thing. Otherwise, it can all get a bit much, I think is probably what I would say for some people. I'll see if I can find some images to put up. Julie's absolutely right in what she said about the eNav site. So if you've not used this yet, I would have a go at it. You've either got the QR code there or you've got the link. I will try and pop the link into the chat. This is the new digital RYA, chart 3, chart 4, tides, and so on and so forth. Okay. I'll show you a couple of the pictures once you've all had a chance to use the QR code. Those seem to have gone. I will pop it into the chat. I'll come back to that. These are the kind of pictures that we're going to be getting in there. Okay, so once you log into it and you look at the MFD screens, this is, for example, route planning with a chart plot for Dayskipper Theory. This is the question. You zoom out on your chart plotter, overlay a radar picture, set a VRM on Stevenstown Harbour Wall. How could it help you verify your position? So if you're teaching pilotage afloat and you don't have a radar, actually here's a really good example of how you could use a variable range marker to tell you exactly how far away the great big wall outside Stevenstown really is. Okay. So I've got my range here, I've got my rings, I've got my display in north up, so this should be tallying with what I expect to see on my chart plotter in north up. I haven't done anything fancy with the orientation. And you can see here I've got a VRM EBL, 2.4 nautical miles, variable range marker. So this thing here, where this is the Stevenstown entrance, is 2.4 nautical miles away. Okay. There's lots more that you can talk about on this screen, but this is just an example of one of the screenshots that there is. It's worth, if you haven't got access to the shore-based questions, then tally up with somebody who does, because that's where this particular question came from. Your Dayskipper Theory also, so your Dayskippers should already be coming out knowing why a radar reflector would be important on a GRP or wooden boat and what one should look like. Okay. But there's heaps of pictures. Okay. And why would AIS would AIS be as good? So when I talk about radar, for me, it's not just radar as a specific thing, it's also radar in a box full of tools, which is what basically my MFD, my multifunction device, does now. It's doing all sorts of magic. So I'm getting AIS feeds over the top of it. So how can I use things like that to the best advantage? Okay. This one I think is off Yachtmaster. Can't remember. But again, this might be an easier picture. What could you hand on heart tell me from this picture? What do you see?
Variable range marker,
Mm-hmm.
EBL,
Okay, so
head up
I've
in
got,
relative mode.
AIS overlay.
okay, I've got a slight difference here between my AIS overlay, which is what's giving me the little red triangle here because my system is unhappy, it's too close, so it's on a collision course, and the radar return for that. So there's obviously a little delay between the two systems. So what my AIS is telling me is actually behind what my radar is telling me. Still pretty close. Still unhappy. If it's flashing anything red in triangles, it's unhappy. Okay. I've got something pretty big coming out of whatever can't remember what this one is, Fitzroy Bay, coming out of the Grumlin Channel, I think it is. I can see some of the buoys that are on the pictures, and I've got a thing right there. I'm obviously coming into Beagle Head. I've got a thing that is on my ship's heading marker. I don't know what the thing is, but hand on heart, it's either the most giant buoy ever or it's a boat. Because the buoys are only itty bitty little ones, look. And that's quite big. So whilst I don't think I'd quite stand up in a court of law and say it's definitely a boat, I'd say it's probably a boat. Okay? And it's probably a boat, not an AIS. Because it's not giving me anything on the AIS. You can see that the radar overlay on here is not quite the same as the land picture. So remember, we're talking about different states of tide. Charts are all done to chart data, as you all know. This is showing me probably something at high water because it's giving me a lot more return of things that would traditionally be green on the charts. Okay. And that's just one of the pictures. The common sense rules, if you don't know them already by heart, these are the kind of things that I would be looking at. Your obligation under all of them, the courses, is to teach IRPCS to a good standard. So look out, safe speed, risk of collision, and action to avoid collision. This is where the radar starts to bump into the IRPCS. You don't just have to go to Rule 19. Everyone says, oh, radar's all about Rule 19. Well, no, it's not. These are all in normal visibility. So I would definitely be having a look at what the wording says for those. Look at a fairly simple one, just still not using radar instead of, but using it as well as safe speed starts to talk about making your avoiding action big enough that it could be seen on a vessel using radar. So not just avoiding the actual collision, but avoiding the collision so that somebody could see that change, which is much harder to do on a radar screen. Okay. Briefly, I teach this, what to do when in or near restricted viz. So I keep it nice and simple and say, here we go, this is where we're going to put the radar on, but what else comes with that? So these are the collision avoidance. Okay, this is so that I don't die a horrible death, because let's face it, that's what we're all trying not to do. What do I know about sound signals? What do I know about monitoring the radar, the radios, and so on? Have I got the radar reflector up? If I haven't, why not? Where is it? Where's it going to go? Okay. Once I've done my collision avoidance, and then what I want to do is to avoid hitting a hazard. How can I use my radar? Well, actually, I can start using the variable range markers to keep me away from the land. I can set a variable range marker around my boat at, say, 1/4 of a nautical mile, and anything outside of that bubble is 1/4 of a nautical mile away. Anything inside the bubble is 1/4 of a nautical mile or less. So I can easily start to do that, as well as all the normal things that you would be expecting to teach just from a fog routine. Okay. And then how to avoid getting lost? I can plot my fix, I can do my contour lines if I want to, and again set my VRM as the best way to stay away from the nearest land. People will talk about things like parallel indexing and using straight lines and so on. That's much more to monitor. I would just keep it nice and simple. Unless you know about those, don't go there. Because I think I'm not sure who mentioned it at the beginning. You might find somebody who does know a little bit about it, and that little bit of knowledge might just be a dangerous thing. When they start telling you all about how, I don't know, their Uncle Ted told them in the bar how they should or shouldn't use it. Okay, it could be long and tortuous to listen to that. Okay. Let me just have a look. And the key thing I think is to say to people, it changes everything. You've got no stand on a giveaway vessels, but if you do have, and the rules does say, if you do have radar, then you should be using it to assess your risk of collision. So the idea of, well, I didn't turn it on because I didn't want to draw the power or whatever it happens to be, good luck with that at the subsequent inquiry. That's really what I would be saying to you. Okay. Bear with me if I just come out of there. I'm just trying to find the bits and pieces that I wanted to show you. Radar plotting, I think, is much more of a difficult one to teach because you're trying to explain the whole principles of relative motion. When I'm trying to do that, I say to people, when you're looking at your radar screen, remember it's a bit like coming up to a roundabout. If you come up to a roundabout that's got multiple entrances and exits, as you approach it, you're making a relative motion decision all the time because you choose at your roundabout to either stop or go. And what makes you stop? The car's coming around the roundabout, or you're making your decision that I will get out in front of that car because it is only doing this speed and it hasn't quite come around the roundabout yet. So that's probably the easiest way to try and get people to understand the idea of relative motion because everybody is moving. And the picture that you see is just showing you one snapshot in time. Don't know if that's a helpful one for people. And you know what? You can always get your students out of their chairs if they're in a classroom and you could get them to pretend they're walking up to a roundabout. And what's the decision? You know, we have quite a lot of fun with that in the car park sometimes. Mostly when they're walking around with little plastic boats, though, because otherwise people just think we're walking around the car park for no good reason. Okay. I will just finish on this to give you an idea, and I will share this one with you all. I've put together an idea of where radar fits in the whole voyage planning cycle. We have moved all of our courses now into teaching everything through APEM, so Appraise, Plan, Execute, Monitor, whether it's the shore-based side of it for the Day Skipper Yachtmaster Theories or whether it's the other, the practical courses. So if I've got a really flashy screen, not quite sure what's going on with that. Guess it's just flashing at my end, is it? It's not flashing at your end. No, magic, okay. If I pop this up, this is one I will. There we go. Hopefully that's shared with you. Okay. So this I will do a quick PDF and pop it in the chat if I can. But basically, where are you trying to get people to use that radar knowledge that they've got? If you're talking about the appraisal, we're looking at what equipment they have, how it could be used. How it could be used for some of the main navigation hazards, whether it's things like TSSs, whether it's Raycons, if they've got somewhere terribly complicated to get out of, if they're going to use radar, if it's going to be nighttime, that kind of thing. Then much more so in the how could we use it for the planning, okay? Various different features and so on, how we could use it for pilotage and how we could use it for monitoring traffic, perhaps. So getting them to think about what they could do with it before they actually go and do it. So how could you put it into your voyage planning so that every leg, for example, of if you have a radar on board, or even if you haven't, if you did have one, how might you use it? Get your students to think about it. If you've done some basic understanding with them of what it could do if they had one, say to them, well, on this leg of the journey, if we had a radar, how could we use it to monitor our position? How could we use it to avoid the whatever it is that we're desperately trying to avoid, okay? When we're talking about execute then, we've got how we would set it up. So this is now you're actually going to do your journey in accordance with your organisation and your prevailing conditions, setting it up, what kind of modes do I want to have it in, the fact that they do have night mode. It changes the picture hugely in night mode. That red screen that you saw just now on the rib was out at night on an advanced course. How is it set up? What do you want to turn on? What do you want to turn off? Okay. And then how might any voyage weather make you change how you set it up? If you know you're going to go and it's going to be particularly bumpy, are you going to play with the sea clutter controls? If it's going to be huge rainstorms, are you going to play with the rain clutter controls as well? Okay. And then the big thing, I suppose, is how you're going to monitor it. What modes you're going to use it in, whether it's going to be used for position fixing, how you could do that. We all must teach position fixing on pretty much all the courses. Well, there's an opportunity to say, hey, if we had a radar on board, maybe we could use this too. Maybe we could use an EBL onto a thing. Maybe we could use a variable range marker. Maybe we could do a 3-point fix using radar ranges. Day range is always going to be much better than doing any of the bearings on a radar. Okay. What I can do for collision avoidance, and then what I can do for maintaining my track. There's all sorts of bits and pieces, but that's just an idea of taking radar as a topic, how it could apply across the board to APEM. Okay. Any questions on that? Bear with me 2 ticks. I just need to go and answer the door. Hang on 2 ticks.
How's everybody getting it? Is it beginning to make a bit more sense?
That APEM PDF is really useful.
I have literally
Good.
just downloaded it and printed it off. I'm going to use that this weekend. That's really good.
I really like that, I must admit.
Yeah, it's fabulous. That's
That's
really
getting
nicely
nicked.
done.
Right, sorry about that. I think I have some small children who are entertaining me with banging on my door. There we are. Okay, that's kind of all I have got for you. I mean, I've got heaps, but I'm just conscious that it's nearly 8:30, isn't it? And you've probably all got homes to go to, or not, as the case may be. But any sort of specific questions that anything we've done has brought out that you'd like me to answer?
Where can I download that APAM plan?
Ooh, I've got a lot. Yeah, mind maps. I've got lots of them. I will. What I will do is I will PDF it and I will see if I can upload it onto the Facebook page.
Brilliant.
If that not is not beyond my capabilities, but I will give it a go.
I have just printed it off, Kath. So if you've got a problem, give us a shout and I'll stick it on Facebook.
And you can send it back to me.
I literally just screenshotted it and printed it out.
Yeah, I think I can export it to PDF, which is probably the one thing. I've got another couple that I'll pop up there as well if you want to do it. I've got the whole appraisal thing and pilotage and all sorts of other bits. I can put those up if people are interested in seeing those as well.
That'd be fabulous. Yeah, that'd be
Yes,
really
please.
Great.
Okay. What
Not
would
to,
be your big takeaway from this evening then?
I was making it more difficult than it is in my lesson plans.
Okay.
You've
How-
just given us a little bit of a lesson plan, and I just think I need to keep it simple.
How so, Tanya? Just out of interest, how were you making it
I was
more?
just looking. I was trying to make myself a complete expert at it when I'm not, and I think if I just start easy, and I'll get to be an expert the more I use it. But yeah, I think you've just made me realise that actually I could do a nice little lesson with the stuff that I do know.
Cool.
Keep it simple, really simple.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's just so important. There's just one last thing. I will put these up. Let me see if I can just put a screenshot. There's some. If I can get that. Oh, now I've lost it. There we go. Let me see if I can just share the right screen. If I pop that up, you should just be. It's not in thingamabob mode, but it shouldn't matter. If you are interested in where you can find out more, then there is the OI Intro to Radar book. It's not the best book. It's not very big either. Hang on, I don't know if I've got one. No, I thought it's not very big and it's not the best. It's another one of those things that's it's teeny tiny. It's like about that big. If you haven't already seen this one from Simon Jinks, then I would absolutely recommend that you buy that one. This is basically an idiot's guide to, that makes it sound
It's a well-explained guide
it's a
to.
very well explained idiot's guide to the IRPCS. But basically what he does is he talks about a particular rule and then he talks about what that really means. And there's quite a lot about radar in there, particularly understanding that it's about being in or near an area of restricted visibility when we're applying Rule 19, not just, oh my God, it's got foggy. That you could be in normal visibility, but they are in restricted visibility. So there's some really good examples in there as well, and some really good worked answers as to how you could explain it. David Birch, I do love David Birch. So he does all sorts of clever things, but Radar for Mariners is quite a textbook, but it does have a workbook that comes with it. So if you are looking at something where you could work through some examples and so on and so forth, then they're not a bad shout. I think you can usually buy them together on Amazon. Can't remember how much it was for. It's lots of info, and it probably gets more complicated than you would really need. But there's some kind of basic stuff in there as well. But certainly, I would say the Simon Jinx one. And there we go. So the radar sim I showed you is nautical software, which was 60 quid when I did this. Is probably about similar. Starpath is a much more expensive one, and it's an American. It's the David Birch one. It's an American-based one, but they are the things that you could do as well. Here we are.
Thank you.
Thank
It's all
you.
right. Any questions? Thanks, man.
That was great, Kath. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
really,
Yeah.
really great. Thank you, Kath.
If you want any more, then let me know. I'm kind of happy to do it. I'd say it's coming up to the quieter time. That might be true for some of you. It's kind of running into our busy time because now everybody wants to run around and powerboats at night and get their advance tickets. So it's going back out into the dark and
Cold and wet and horrible. Yeah.
I just
If,
think as well, on the back of this fantastic session, Kath, if anybody's got any questions having watched this video, please find them on the Facebook and have a go at doing some of the stuff that Kath shared with you, and then feedback. Let us know how you're getting on, and then we can kind of get that kind of positivity, exactly what Tanya said out there, of going, actually, let's just have a go at doing what we can do well and build up on that.
I'll try and share some of the screenshots that I've got. Again, I appreciate if you were there and you took the picture, it's very obvious what the picture is. So it might not be so obvious, but I can try and share some of those. I've got some interesting ones of Loch Ness being really quite long and thin to show you what the range is. So I can pop some things like that up on the screen. So I've got these kids are just banging on windows. I'm just going to let the dog go in a minute. Yeah, I will try and put those on there as well. And if people want anything, so if you said, actually, I could really do with a picture of ... then tell us, and I'm sure Julie and I can probably go and get it for you.
If not,
If
I've
you want
probably got
a
it.
Raycon firing, or if you want, I don't know, AIS overlay, or if you want, I don't know. And actually, well, I'm down with Julie in November. So from that perspective, I'm sure we can sort something out if people wanted some extra screens to show.
Exactly. I've got radars or recorded radar of kind of sea clutter, rain clutter that Graham Stone made up, and they're really good. I've put them up on the resources page, so they should be in the videos on resources. If not, let me know. I can put them back up. And I've got a lot of screen videos or screenshots of pretty much most things the radar can do. So I can put them up with a bit of an explanation or something like that if anyone wants it.
And don't be
Thank you
afraid
so
to
much, both of you.
get your students to go and read the manual. So if
Nothing
they are
negative.
that one who knows a little bit more than you, then I just give them the manual and say, well, you go and work it out. They might not be quite so smart next time, but you never know.
Love that tip.
Yeah, it was. I think there was a Simrad I was on, and you pulled down from the top of the screen for one menu, you pulled from the right for one menu, you pulled from the left for another, and then you pulled from the bottom, and then you pressed the screen, and it gave a whole lot more new menus all around it again. Anyway, it took me about 20 minutes of going, ooh, whiz bang, what? Oh, right, okay. Oh, I recognize that. And then they changed the name of it.
And that's the key thing. If they just try and keep it simple. If your students don't know very much about radar, then anything that you can tell them is going to help them. So that when they go to a coastal exam or an offshore exam and somebody says, how would you do this? What could you add to your pilotage plan if I gave you a magical singing or dancing radar? And they just look blankly and go, I don't know, because I've never had one. Well, that's just not them being in control, is it? So if they can say, well, actually, I'd probably use some ranges, or I'd perhaps use an EBL, or I'd be looking for the Raycon to do this, or whatever, you're giving them an opportunity to sound a bit more confident about it.
Right.
True. Good.
All right.
Thank you, Kath.
Thank you,
I
so
would
Kath.
love
much
to
for
take
that.
you up on the offer of any resources that you have or would like to share. That really, really would be great.
Yeah.
So I'd love to take you up on that offer.
Yeah.
I will
both of
definitely
us.
see
Thank
what
you
I
very
have
much.
and I can pop them up on the Facebook page.
Yeah,
And
excellent. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Fantastic evening. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who organised it.
That was Kath. Kath was responsible for organising it and sorting it out. So thank you, Kath,
Yeah.
for just
Yeah.
getting on with it and doing it.
all
'Cause
right, you're very
it
welcome.
probably wouldn't have happened otherwise. So thanks.
No, you're very welcome. If there is like a special thing that you want to do, then let me know. I'm happy to do a shorter session on using it for this or that or whatever, or doing some of the electronic stuff. Like I say, we have much more access to it, and we're probably doing it a lot more. And we're generally hurtling around at greater speeds, doing it a lot faster. So I think that we've got plenty of stuff that we can share. But I'll definitely try and share the my APEN bits and pieces with you. I've got mind maps of those across the board, really. So
If you find something on a radar screen you're not sure what it is, take a picture with your phone
yes,
and pop it up, and we can probably work it out.
we can play Guess the Splodge.
Yes.
That would be great. Let's play that game. It's also helpful if you see something on your screen, if you could take a picture out of the window of what it might be.
That's a really good idea.
That would help too. Just saying, that would help too. There's a couple of on our YouTube channel. I'll see if I can find a link, but there's already a couple of basic intro to restricted visibility videos on there. So if you haven't seen our YouTube channel, they're already on there. That they're free and you're welcome to read through those. They were the ones that we did in lockdown that are generally freely available. But like I said, if anybody wants any more, I will happily.
And if the session has brought up afterwards, once you've thought about it, if it's brought up any questions that you kind of go, oh, do you know what? It'd be really great to do, and Kath kind of said this already, but if really great to do a session just on pilotage or just on collision avoidance or using MARPA or whatever it happens to be, then use the group to just put it up there and tag Kath in it, and then Kath can get on it and she can kind of fit it in around her schedule, or maybe Jules can fit it in around her schedule, and we can maybe get another session set up for more bespoke things.
Yeah.
Again,
topic,
another time. I don't want to put too much on Kath or Jules either, but I've worked in this industry for 20 years, and I literally have only ever been on like 3 boats that have got radar. So it is, and I was lucky that one of those boats I worked on for 3 years, and that was great because I got used to it. But for a lot of sail school boats, they just don't have it, and we don't get the exposure to it. So it is really important, and it doesn't help our confidence at all. So this session has been fantastic. Thank you, Kath. Really
And I
great.
think the key thing, certainly for those doing Yachtmaster preps, is that certainly talking with the examiners, the idea of, well, I haven't got one, so I don't need to know it, was kind of okay for a while. And we kind of got away with that. Not so much in the motor world, but then we have, endless power. But I think it's more the fact that just because you haven't got one doesn't mean you shouldn't teach it, and doesn't give you a like a get out of jail free to sort of go, oh, well, we can't teach it because we haven't got one. Do you know what I mean? And I think if you want to prepare those candidates, because you could get an examiner who's really hot on radar, and they're going to ask all sorts of complicated things.
No, it's great going digging and see how much they know.
Oh, Jules, I'd hate you. I'd be like, no, don't do this to my poor students who haven't had a radar ever, and now you're gonna beast them on it. Meanie.
And I think, is it not it's one of the choices of topics, isn't it, for the YMI course,
Yes,
if I remember
yes.
rightly? Because I picked that one. That was quite easy. I just,
Yeah,
I'll do that. Cool. But yeah, I would say
steered clear of that one.
Yeah, the biggest one, I think, Tanya, you mentioned it, is don't overcomplicate it. It really doesn't need to be. It's how do we not die? How do we not get lost? And how do we not hit anything?
If there's a blob in front of us on the radar, we look out the window. Can we see a blob in front of us out the window? And then we either turn left, right, stop, and go back the way we came. Then we don't hit it. Literally,
That's
that-
it.
that's it.
Yeah.
All right then, ladies, that's been amazing. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and thank you so much for Kath for doing all that hard work. That was amazing, as
All right.
always. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Kath.
you.
That's all right. You're very welcome. Have a lovely evening, everyone.